the opening day of the Empire Games, the Olympics of the British Commonwealth of Nations.
It now gives me the greatest pleasure to declare the 20th Commonwealth Games open.
It was a massive thing, the Commonwealth Games coming to Glasgow in 2014. I think there was, a 7-year build-up from Glasgow getting awarded the Games to actually coming. The country as well, but the city, especially Glasgow, was so invested in it, and there was so much goodwill towards those games. And I think there was so much excitement within the city.
Heading into a home Commonwealth Games, that's when it all sort of hit home that this is going to be quite a big deal and quite exciting.
So many people got involved from kind of volunteering aspect, and most people knew somebody who was doing something at the Commonwealth Games, I think, because it was such a big thing. Some of the facilities that were built were really great, really good addition to the city.
Overwhelmed by, what we were able to have to compete in. Something special about being able to go and compete for Scotland, but to compete, for Scotland in Scotland was really, really special.
Scottish athletes did really well, which always helps. And then there were some really good kind of international performances, stuff like Usain Bolt turning up and things like that.
You had a great atmosphere, and it almost gave the home athletes that advantage as well, because they had the noise and the support from the crowd. You remember these really big moments, like Ross Murdoch in the pool, winning, Hannah Miley on the podium when she was in tears. All these moments are just iconic. People have gone there for watching 2014, they've been inspired, they then want to go on and take up a sport and go and try that.
I went to watch the badminton with my family. I watched the team event and a few of the finals, where I seen Kirsty Gilmore win her silver medal in the women's singles final.
She's back level. This is absolutely extraordinary.
Watching all these top athletes competing and playing their best, winning all these medals, it was pretty motivating to watch. It's made me sort of drive forwards. I want to be them players, I want to be what they're doing.
I love being able to sort of look back and reminisce and have such fond memories, and not just of my performances and being at the athletics, but I think just Glasgow as a whole.
A lot of that was because of that goodwill towards, and a lot of the kind of good feeling towards it was why it was such a success.
Just a massive sort of thing, just even being in the city, a lot of stuff was going on compared to what I'm used to. It was overall a really, really great experience.
There were just so many great moments that came from the Games. To carry the flag for Scotland and actually be the first female athlete to carry the flag, so to make a bit of history, it was just a massive honour.
I got to compete in the 2022 Commonwealth Games in Birmingham. A good atmosphere on and off the court. That's definitely the biggest achievement I've had so far in my career.
Victoria's regions will play host to the 2026 Commonwealth Games.
And making sure that this is the best Commonwealth Games that's ever been held. We have informed Commonwealth Games authorities of our decision to seek to terminate the contract. The Games will not proceed in Victoria in 2026.
A few years to go and no host for the 2026 Games, and there's been, I think, a lot of back and forward between a lot of different countries in the Commonwealth Games Federation about who would take the 2026 Games, and it's kind of eventually worked out that Glasgow would take it. Really a case of, either Glasgow take it or there'll be no Games in 2026. So obviously that's been a kind of big saving grace for the Commonwealth Games Federation that Glasgow have taken it.
What I'm really happy about is there's a future to the event. I think we were getting to that point where nobody was going to pick it up, and it was going to be a case of, will the games happen? Is that going to be the end of the games? The fact that it's been saved, we've been able to put together a plan with a real short time scale. It's about sort of trying to get behind it as much as possible.
It's going to look very different to what people have seen before for Commonwealth Games. So it's only 10 sports, there's only going to be venues, there's going to be no athletes village, there's going to be much smaller opening and closing ceremonies.
It's going to be more cost efficient, it's going to be more sustainable, and it's not going to be roads shut, it's not going to be new motorways built, new flats built, that sort of kind of idea.
What's helping Glasgow is that they're saying they won't use any public money. There's definitely a lot more kind of cynicism about whether this is a good idea. It's a completely different financial climate this time around compared to 2014, and there is an argument that should Glasgow be doing this when people are going to food banks and people can't afford to heat their houses. I think it's helped that Glasgow's obviously kind of moulding to what it can afford. It's not trying to hold this massive sporting event like Glasgow 2014 was. So I think that's helped probably turn or change people's minds a wee bit about whether it's a good idea or not.
I think people are now sort of thinking about all those good memories from 2014 and hoping that we'll be able to recreate more of them in 2026, and ultimately we can, because all you need is the athletes and the performances to do that.
I was very, very excited that Glasgow was hosting the 2026 Commonwealth Games. Yeah, everyone wants to play with all that support, and we've got 2 years away until the games, so that's 2 years of extra training I've got behind me, so more or less be better than what I am right now. So I'd like to think I could get a result that I'm happy with. I woke up to a message from my stepdad with the headline saying badminton's cut from the 2026 Commonwealth Games. I was just quite quiet, I didn't really know what to think. Obviously it'd be great to play in my second Commonwealth Games in my home country. So yeah, it was just very, very just surprised really. Came to training the same day, and same thing with all the other athletes. No one really spoke about it. We're all kind of taken back by the choice, as we all thought badminton would be in the event. Like the Olympics and the Commonwealth Games are sort of the two major events in badminton. It's ones people want to win medals in, and having that taken away from me without even having a choice really, it is really tough, and yeah, it's just, I don't know, it's a bit frustrating really.
For including some sports or not as being logistically, does it fit in with the plan?
Athletics and swimming are the two sort of main sports that don't get left out.
And then there's obviously other sports, like gymnastics or track cycling, which are massively popular with the public. A sport like badminton typically runs from the first day to the very last day, so then that, would wipe out the Emirates for the whole Commonwealth Games, so, kind of closes off for any other sport.
I do think badminton should be in over some other sports, just in terms of it's such an inclusive sport. It inspires a lot of people to play and pick up a racket and just even try it out for fun.
Because it doesn't just impact that games, it impacts everything, because sports have 4-year plans, they have funding, they have sponsorships based on athletes and competing at games, based on the publicity that will bring with it, the sponsorships that will bring those. So it's a really tricky one.
It's just not ideal really. All the athletes are a bit gutted from it. It's not our choice, unfortunately.
It's going to take a lot more work to convince people, over the next year or so that this is a good idea.
The organisation needs to stay on track. It needs to sort of deliver what it said it's going to deliver.
2022 cost around about £800 million, which is just not sustainable. And when Victoria pulled out, it was going to cost literally billions of dollars. And at the end of the day, it's not a top-tier sporting event. It's not the Olympic Games, or it's not a World Championships. And the model they're using is this could potentially be a template for how cities could host it going forward, because it also means that smaller countries now have the chance to bid for it. This might be how the Commonwealth Games looks going forward, if there is a Commonwealth Games going forward. Commonwealth itself is such an outdated concept. It's basically all the countries of the British Empire owned. I mean, I don't think that's going to be the thing that makes or breaks the Commonwealth Games, but it definitely doesn't help it that it's basically the British Empire Games.
And I think there's always that political side to it. As an athlete, it's never been brought into the games. It's just a case of we go to the Commonwealth Games, these are the countries that are there, we get a chance to represent Scotland, and that's how it works. You can't be naive to think that it doesn't have an impact. You can't be probably ignorant enough to say it doesn't have an impact.
There potentially could be a way of like rebranding it, because as a kind of sporting event, it's still quite a popular thing.
I think we've got to be kind of open-minded to you know, the way we are in the world, the way the world's evolving and how things are going to change.
They need to try and like get away from the concept of the Commonwealth as much as they can. I would be surprised if I'm still talking about the Commonwealth Games in like 20 or 40 years' time, to be honest.
I find it very hard to imagine that we'll get back to the highs of the sort of 2014 experiences. And like I say, I don't think that's a bad thing.
And I don't think athletes value it as much as maybe they used to. And that's a huge problem for the Commonwealth Games, because if they don't have the big names turning up, kind of what's the point of it? And then it obviously makes it less attractive for host nations.
So yeah, I definitely think that there will be another Commonwealth Games, just I'm not sure when. There's been a lot of talk about the Commonwealth Games. Obviously we've just had the Olympics and people were focused on that and kind of forgot about the Commonwealth Games, but I think because people are more like aware of it now with all the drama that's going on, if there's not a Games in the next 2 games, then start raising their voices and wondering why the Games have just disappeared, really.
My guess is that after 2026 they will find a host for 2030, but beyond that it's really hard to predict whether there will be something.
A lot of my favourite moments in my career have come from the Commonwealth Games experiences. I'm just glad there's a future there, whatever that might look like.
It's really hard to kind of find an argument for the Commonwealth Games to keep going. You know, by the time we get to 2050, I don't think there'll be a Commonwealth Games anymore, to be honest.